Pokebabs!
Hey guys, welcome back to Pokebabs. Today, as I mentioned in the last video, we are looking at some of the results from this last weekend's two League Cups in the Spokane area, and I was able to attend both of them, which was great. And the first one was standard. The second one on Sunday was expanded, and I think most people in general are more excited about the expanded one. I certainly was. And I'm going to focus more on that because I have a little bit more of the information there, and I did better there as well. So yeah, but we'll take a look at the deck that I played in the standard one on Saturday first. I did play for both of these decks. Both the decks I chose are decks that I've recently profiled on the channel, so I won't go too deep into it. But I did play this Yveltal Garbodor list with the Bisharp. And I think that it was a pretty good call for the most part in terms of the deck to play. I did obviously have to cut down some consistency from your typical Yveltal Garbodor list in order to fit in this 2-2 line. And I think that definitely did hurt me in the end. So I wouldn't say necessarily that it was the best build, but I do think it was a good call. There was a lot of Mega Gardevoir. Both types of Mega Gardevoir, but specifically the Despair Ray one. And the Despair Ray one I have a really good matchup against, as I've mentioned before, with this Bisharp. The Retaliate does do 30 plus 60, so that times 2 is 180. The minus for the resistance to Dark is 160. So if you hit them with a Fright Knight first, then you hit them with Retaliate, you can get a knockout on a Mega Gardevoir. So, yeah, I actually was feeling okay walking into the room for that reason, but things definitely did not go as planned. Round 1, I did play against a Despair Mega Gardevoir, and I just could not get set up. It wasn't a super quick game, but I just did not have the opportunity to get my Bisharps set up. I had to discard, I think, 2 Bisharps and a Pawniard, like turn 2 or 3, just because I was drawing so dead at the beginning. And so that definitely hurt me later on. I had to super rod them back in order to play them, and I actually was pretty close in the end. I end my opponent down to 1 card, and he needed an energy to win, and if not, I was going to win the next turn. And I end him down to 1 card, and I found out later that the card that I end him to was a Shaman, and then he top deck, or I think the card I end him into was a Sycamore, and then he top decked Shaman on his next turn. So, yeah, he was definitely going to find the energy. But, yeah, I would just say all in all, the day did not go so well. I actually didn't play any Mega Gardevoir, or I did play only 1 Mega Gardevoir, but that was in round 5, so it didn't really matter at that point. But I would like to go over what decks did well. There was a pretty good spread on what decks ended up topping, and so I'm going to head over into the list of the deck that won the cup. So, as I mentioned, the top 8 had a pretty diverse set of lists. There was actually a Mega Altaria that made top 8. The guy who was piloting it seemed to know it pretty well. He did come up against a pretty bad matchup in his top 8 match against the Brilliant Arrow Mega Gardevoir, because the Brilliant Arrow can one-hit the Mega Altarias. So that's pretty big. But the top 4 ended up in the top 4 spots went to Patty McSwain, who's a good friend of mine. He got to top 4 with the Brilliant Arrow Mega Gardevoir, and he actually fell in top 4 to the person who ended up winning with this list we see here. And it's actually, you would think it's a fairly favorable matchup for the Brilliant Arrow over Despair, but anything can happen. I guess there were some dead draws here or there. a end to a low number, a low hand size, threw things off. But yeah, so Patty with Brilliant Arrow, and I can't remember. I think it was Troy Healy who got also top four, was playing the top four deck was Darkrai and the Dragons deck, and I believe he was playing not only the Giratina but also that Salamence EX, which says 10 plus 50 for each EX on your opponent's bench. So yeah, interesting to see those two decks making top four. Then second place went to Eddie. I can't remember his last name, but he I believe he's from Tri-Cities area, and he was playing sort of a dark variant. I think he was probably playing. I think he played a mixture of attackers, but it was a fairly straightforward dark variant. And then the winner was Alex Cook. He's probably one of the most successful players in coming out of the Spokane region and or Eastern Washington, North Idaho area, and he was playing this Despair Ray Mega Gardevoir deck, and we will take a look at it real quick. I actually think that I will be doing a little highlight on my channel in the next week or so of the two decks that took first in each of these League Cups, but we'll take a look at Alex's list real quick here. He was playing a 3-3 Mega Gardevoir line, and I didn't actually get from him which Mega Gardevoirs he was playing. I would assume he was at least playing two of the Link Blast Gardevoir EX. I'm not 100% sure if he played any of the Life Leap ones from Primal Clash, but yeah, obviously the 3-3 line, so he went a little bit thinner with only the three EXs, three basic EXs, and then three of this Despair Ray Gardevoir. Now, it does have this attack. Despair Ray does 110 plus 10 for each Pokemon that you discard from your bench. And the dual typing is actually fairly relevant. The Psychic typing means that you have a really good matchup against Mega Mewtwo. So, yeah, definitely significant. Also, the Dark resistance is definitely important considering how much Yveltal is in the format right now. So he was playing a 3-3 line for Shaman for that setup ability. Of course, as many as you can play in this deck is what you want to do. So he maxed that out at 4. He was playing a pretty nice tech here that we've seen in a few of these Mega Gardevoir variants lately. He's playing this Rattata with Mischievous Fang, where when you bench it, you get to discard all tool cards attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So that's pretty cool. Definitely makes sense as a one-of here. He did play 2 Hoopa as well for that Scoundrel Ring ability, getting Pokemon EX from your deck, getting yourself a good setup, and getting lots of Pokemon on the bench. That can work well for you late game as well. He played 2 of this Dragonite EX as well with the new one from Evolutions with the pull-up ability, allowing him to get 2 basic Pokemon from your discard into your hand. So that is obviously a really, really great addition to this deck. I think really helped it out. Other than that, in terms of interesting techs or interesting cards that he chose to throw in there, he is playing actually 4 Spirit Link, interestingly enough, even though just the 3-3 line, probably because he can always get back his Gardevoirs with the Dragonite or with Brock's Grit or Super Rod, and so you might as well be able to set up 4 attackers. It only makes sense that you would want to do that. Maybe you discard. You have to discard a Gardevoir at some point with with Despair Ray. So he was playing 4 Spirit Links, 3 Mega Turbo, and 2 Fairy Drop, which has kind of come in and out of this deck, but definitely seemed to probably help him out against some of the dark decks that he came up against. And so that was this is Alex's list. As I mentioned, we will be going over this, and I'll be doing some showing some games with it later on in the week. Moving on to day 2, or rather the second day that we had a League Cup, which was Sunday, and This was an expanded tournament, as I mentioned. Now, both of these tournaments were just shy of the cutoff for top 8 to get points. So there was a top 8 cut, but then only the top 4 would get points. So just wanted to point that out. So I did play this Seismitoad Manectric Crobat list, and as I mentioned before, this is one of my favorite decks. Has been. I played this actually at Cities last year. For all the cities last year, it has changed slightly, but not all that much, to be honest. The newest card in the deck is actually this Fighting Fury Belt, and that's from Breakpoint, so it's not even all that new, and only a one of anyway. So it has changed. I have made some changes along the way, like adding in the Silent Lab and this Pokemon Communication, switching out Level Ball for Pokemon Communication. But yeah, pretty similar list as what I've played in the past, and just goes to show how you can use older decks and expanded and still have success. So I will go over my rounds in this tournament because I kind of kept better track of it. Round 1, I played against Cheyenne Baxter, and she just barely bubbled. I think she got 9th place on for the Standard League Cup, and she was actually playing Mega Gyarados, which is one of her favorite decks, and that was pretty cool that she almost top cut with the Mega Gyarados deck. But for expanded, she was playing Speed Darkrai, and that's kind of an interesting matchup. A lot of it comes down to if I go first, can I get Ghetsis? If I go second, do I get Quaking Punch? That sort of thing. And that was not the case. I did not go first. So she did get fairly set up. I think she got about 4 energy on the board turn 1. And then turn 2, I did start Toad. But unfortunately, I was not able to get the double colorless. And so I did just have to attach a lightning for turn on the Toad, which was pretty... which definitely was not the game plan. And that hurt me for sure. She was able to get probably a couple more energy and was hitting me for 2 hits basically from then on out. And I did get a Quaking Punch off, I believe, turn 3, but it was just kind of too late at that point. In addition, I missed literally every single Super Scoop Up flip. I did get a chance to flip all 4 of them during that first game, and yeah, I missed every single Scoop Up flip. I did use the Scoop Up Cyclone, but it was actually on a Shaman, just because I knew I was gonna be discarding my hand anyway with Sycamore, so I did play the Scoop Up Cyclone, but it was just to get a Shaman off my board. That said, like I said, I missed all the Scoop Up flips, and it got to the point where I knew that I was going to lose the next turn because I just didn't have anything. There was an N. I actually ended myself at one point, and I sort of end myself into a hand that was good but had no supporter or way out of things, and so I was able to get another Seismitoad set up, but I wasn't able to draw after that point, and missing all the Super Scoop Up flips, not getting AZ, I just was not able to really get anything going for me, and I was just too slow. So I did Super Scoop Up to try and pick up the Toad to bench myself out, and I actually failed that, but then I managed to play the AZ in order to pick up the Toad and lose on my own terms. So I did lose round 1, and I was thinking, well, this is, it's going to be like yesterday yet again. So I was 0-1 going into round 2, and round 2, I went up against Will Oakley. He's actually the father of one of the younger players at the league, and he was, I believe that he had I think he might have actually had 2 sons that were playing in the younger divisions, which is pretty cool. And he was a nice guy. He was playing sort of some strange fire deck that had Embor and Baby Volcanion, and a Mega Charizard from yeah, it was not the Mega Charizard from Flash Fire. So yeah, it wasn't definitely was not a hard matchup, but he was a nice guy to talk to, and got to try and help him a little bit with just strategizing against, at least for playing against his kids, and yeah, so I took a pretty easy win game two, or rather round two. Then going into round three, I played against one of our TOs in the area, Tony, who he organizes a ton of the events. This is one of the rare events that he actually got to play in, so that was pretty cool to see him out there playing. And he was playing a Turbo Dark list, and I think it was mostly centered around Darkrai EX and that Dark Pulse attack, similar to Cheyenne's list. But the difference in this case was that although he did get to go turn one, I don't know exactly what happened, but he got a pretty bad setup. Basically, I think he had to end before doing anything. He just had a Darkrai active, and he had to end. I think he attached an energy and then end, and he was able to get a couple darks in the discard pile, but I guess he just wasn't able to get the dark patches. He wasn't able to get other Pokemon down, really, for the most part, and so only getting one energy down turn one against Toad deck is really, really bad for them. And I was able to Quaking Punch turn two. Then I basically just Quaking Punched the entire game until the very end, when he had finally got an Eviltal set up with 3 energy on it. And I think, yeah, he definitely didn't have any tool on it. So I actually would not have been able to get the knockout with Eviltal, or with my Manectric, which I had powered up. I would not have been able to get a knockout with the Manectric, but I think I top decked a Headringer, so I was able to Headringer it, retreat out of the Seismitoad that had been locking him pretty much the whole game, and then I went for the knockout with the Assault Laser on Manectric. So that was round three. Pretty straightforward. The matchup is it just depends on who gets going faster. You know, do I get the Quaking Punch off? Does he get to play most of his items and get a few energy on the board? Definitely Darkrai is a great attacker against this deck, just because it can hit really hard, and I can't necessarily, I can't very easily hit it or knock it out in a couple turns. But obviously Seismitoad EX very helpful in the matchup, and that was really helpful to being able to get that win there. Going into round four, I went up against a good friend of mine, Ben Noren, who was playing a Maxie's Dark deck. So I actually played a lot of Dark. I played three dark decks in Swiss, and I can't remember exactly how things went. But basically, what I remember was that I was, turn one, I went first. I didn't get the Getsus, which I was obviously hoping for, because I was thinking, he's going to go for Archeops and then I'll lose all my bats. He could go for Gallade, but I think he knows that Archeops is probably the best play turn one if you can get it against my deck. We've played a lot in the past and just play tested, and so we knew each other's decks pretty well. And so turn one, I got a Manectric with a Lightning on it, and he opened Eviltal, which was really nice for me to see. I mean, I don't know if I'd rather see him open Shaman or Eviltal. Probably Eviltal, because he can't Max Elixir or Dark Patch to it. So he opened the Eviltal, and turn two, or his first turn, he really wasn't able to get a whole lot going. I don't think he had a great hand, and so he didn't really get much going. I got the Toad turn two, and I had the option of trying to dig for a Headringer and then go for the Assault Laser knockout, but he also had a Shaman on the bench and another Eviltal, I think. And I knew that if I let him start playing all of his items, I would probably give him the upper hand, even though I would get the early knockout. And I just didn't really think that was the right way to go. So I decided to go into, retreat into the Seismitoad, and ended up paying off big time. I was able to just lock him out. He had to discard a lot of items. He was missing energy a lot of the time, and I think I did also close that game with a knockout with Manectric on an Eviltal or a Shaman, something like that. But yeah, that's obviously if I get the Quaking Punch off again, it's a very favorable matchup. So going into round 5, I was 3-1, which was fantastic. I was able to come back from that round 1 loss, and then I was paired against Austin Reno for round 5, but we were both 3-1, and we had checked the rankings, and we could tell that it was going to be a clean cut if everyone in the top 4 tables just ID'd. So we did decide to intentionally draw our game, and I was able to make it into the top 8 cut, which was fantastic. And I don't really know exactly how the matchup would have gone against his Mega Manectric box deck. I think it might have been tough. Definitely Manectric would have been very helpful, but I'm not sure what all attackers he played. So I'm not exactly sure how it would have gone, but it definitely would have been an interesting matchup. So, yep. And then I went into the top 8 match, and the guy that I was playing against for my top 8 match, Enrique, he actually got a game loss against me. Unfortunately, I think, I think he mixed up a couple of his Pokemon numbers, like the number identifying the set number for a couple Pokemon, and so he had them switched or something, and unfortunately he did get a game loss for that. So I was going into my top 8 round with the 1 game on him already, and all I needed to do was win 1 game out of 2, and I was feeling I don't know, I wasn't necessarily feeling super confident, but I thought I probably would be able to win 1 game. At that point, I knew what he was playing. He was playing Rainbow Road, with Ho-Oh, with the Rebirth Ho-Oh, and that's a deck that he's played a lot. He's played Rainbow Road in Standard and Expanded a lot, and I know that he really likes the deck, and he's really experienced with it. Actually, the really interesting thing was that this top 8 had 8 different decks, and not even just 8 slight variants, but 8 pretty much completely different decks. I'll go over the top 4, but I think I'll go over the top 4 and later. But yeah, there were 8 completely different decks, which is pretty rare, I think. Even in Expanded, where there's so many different decks, I think it's still rare for you to see 8 completely different decks. So yeah, going up against him, I was going into the first game, and of course he gets to choose to go first because he gets the round 1 loss. And we knew we'd have plenty of time to finish our 2 games if it came to it. Now he was playing Rainbow Road, which is not a favorable matchup for the most part. They do play a lot of items, which is the one good thing, and they're also ability reliant, basic ability reliant. So Silent Lab I knew would play a big role in things, or could potentially play a big role in things. But basically he on our game 2, which was the first game we played, right? He got a crazy setup. He got I think 6 Pokemon on his bench. He got a Ho-Oh with 2 energy. He had energy switched the energy onto the active Xerneas with a double colorless energy, and I was just sitting there with the Toad active, okay, hopefully I can Quaking Punch and get myself out of this. But just playing the 1-of Stadium was definitely hurt me. I would say maybe it would be good to bump it up to another Stadium, or at the very least play a Delinquent. But I think playing 2 Silent Lab would have been pretty helpful in this matchup for sure. Just being able to bump his bench Pokemon and also make it so he can't propagate, he can't rebirth with Ho-Oh, he can't rush in with Keldeo. All these things that are really, really integral to the deck running as smoothly as it did. And so game one, I pretty much just got destroyed. Or game two, that is. I got the Quaking Punch, but it was just way too. It was way too set up, and sometimes that's just how it goes against a deck like that that's so aggressive. Game three was definitely a lot more interesting. I got to start the game, and I got to go first, and I did. Let's see. I did miss the turn one Getsus, which I think would have been very, very big if I had hit the turn one Getsus, but I missed the turn one Getsus, and that hurt for sure. And as a result, he was able to get a little bit set up, but really not that. He didn't get very well set up. I think, he had 2 Ho-Oh, and he missed both Rebirth flips on his first turn. And so he didn't get a Ho-Oh on board. He had a Xerneas with a DCE and a Xerneas on the bench. And then he had a couple other Pokemon, like a Shaman and something else. So he wasn't set up at all, and I was feeling pretty good at that point because I was able to get a Quaking Punch off. But can't remember exactly what happened. I think basically he just had a pretty good turn 2. He was able to get set up. I don't know if he knocked me out directly after that, but he knocked me out within the next couple turns, and I was able to get some bats down, which was really big. I was able to get down exactly the right amount of damage to be able to knock out his active Xerneas with a Quaking Punch because of Muscle Band and a bat and one Golbat. So it was kind of crazy, but I was able to knock out his active, and he had basically nothing set up. He had a Xerneas on the bench with no energy on it. He is item locked. He has a Ho-Oh EX with a fairy and a lightning on it, and so he sends the Ho-Oh active, and I'm thinking, okay, this is great. Like, what's the chance that under item lock he's going to be able to get another energy type on onto this Ho-Oh, because the Ho-Oh does 20 plus 20 for each energy attached. So I was at 100 damage, and he would have had to have hit 80 in order to knock me out, which would mean he needed, which I later found out was his 1 dark energy in the deck. So he had a lightning attached, a fairy attached, and if he attached a fairy or a DCE, it would only do 60, which wouldn't be enough for a knockout. So he had to hit the 1 dark in his deck. Going into his turn, he sends up the Ho-Oh. He ends. He doesn't play any cards. He ends. He does get a whole new hand of 6, but obviously he can't go for Shaman. He can't dig any deeper than those cards, pretty much. And it's early on in the game. Obviously, I mean, I'd just taken my first knockout, and so he goes for 6, and he hits the dark energy, which, as I said, was his only dark in the deck, and then he was able to knock out my Seismitoad, which was big for a couple reasons. One, it was big because it was my second, or it wasn't my second Toad, it was my first Toad, but it was the only Toad I had, and I think I got end into, like, not a great hand, and so him getting the knockout meant that he was able to break the lock, and then I was able to, then I had to start attacking with Manectric at that point, and that was definitely not what I wanted to do. But I think that was basically the main turning point in the game, was when he hit that dark energy off of the N. It was like, there's no way back for me. I mean, I guess there is always possibility of a way back, but he just got really set up after the lock was broken, and he was able to take the top 8 match. So unfortunately, I did end up without getting any points, but I got 4 Roaring Skies packs, which was pretty fun. I got a couple pulls out of it. We got this Full Art Gallade EX and this Rayquaza EX, the dragon one. So that was kind of cool. And so now we're going to go look at what Enrique's deck was, since he did end up taking first in this tournament. So here is Enrique's list of Ho-Oh, of the Ho-Oh Rainbow Road deck. And I just want to mention the other top 4 decks that made it. Jory Ackerman was second. He was playing a dark deck. Gordon Smith was playing Greninja. And Austin, as I mentioned, Austin Reno before, was playing Mega Manectric. toolbox. So there were those 4 decks, and then I was playing Size Toad Crobat Manectric. So that's a 5th deck. There was a Sable Garb. Alex Cook, from who had won the previous day, he was playing Sable Garb. Tristan, my friend Tristan Pisani was playing. He was playing fighting. What was it? Zygarde Carbink, and then trying to remember who the last person, what they were playing. But yeah, everyone was playing pretty much a completely different deck, which was pretty cool to see in top 8. So here is here's Enrique's list. I will go over this in a little bit more depth when I do the deck analysis video. But as you can see, he was playing one Xerneas Break, which didn't really come into handy too much. Also, he was playing Jolteon, which could have been pretty effective against me, but he just never really ended up going that route. He pretty much just went straight for the Rainbow Force, and it was enough to get him that game. As you can see, 1 Dark Energy, and yeah, Ninja Boy actually played a pretty interesting role too in our game. He was able to, I was able to put a Head Ringer on his Ho-Oh that had the 3 energies, and then he Ninja Boyed out of it into a Xerneas, and that was brutal because I think he Ninja Boyed out into Xerneas, and then I think he was like 10 shy of getting the knockout on my Manectric, but it was brutal because I wasn't really expecting him to retaliate so quickly. And so yeah, when he Ninja Boys out of the Ho-Oh, the Xerneas loses the Head Ringer, so he was able to attack right away. So that was pretty painful. The Execute was pretty useful for him as well. So yeah, and his deck was pretty much all blinged out, which was cool. It was only missing a couple cards for it to be like completely gold, full art, everything. So that was pretty awesome. But yeah, congrats to the winners, and hope you enjoyed this little recap of the weekend's events. I will be, as I mentioned, showing off this list and Alex's list from the Standard League Cup as well in the next coming days. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.